like my last message that I'm recording on this computer. Don't despair. Like my friend likes to say, and I'll get to it in a second. Context is everything, so I'm just gonna throw the context before I tell the joke. So what I mean by this is the last message that I'm gonna record on this computer is that because I've been having so many technical issues with this computer, as you may have remembered from some of my other messages, I am going to be receiving another one. Speaking of receiving, I'm still just finishing the last few bites of my meal here. And I think I'm going to use that as part of the illustration of what I'm talking about today. And I'm going to be talking more about different gifts. Because as you recall, as I said about Ephesians 6, where we're kind of like sometimes we're the body of Christ, we also may represent different components of God's armor. In a sense, or like, well, as Paul also likes to say in another passage, one body, many parts. So today I'm mostly going to be talking from 1 Corinthians 12, and I guess people kind of think that Paul has a certain writing pattern, like, you know, like I said in some of the, like I think it was Ephesians 4, where, you know, they say that, oh, you know, at first, the first few chapters are kind of like, or the first few parts are kind of like a preamble, and then he starts to get into the meat of it. And then, like, you know, maybe the first few chapters of Corinthians, he doesn't address their questions, as Stephen says. And then it's like, oh, in 1 Corinthians 7, now about the matters he wrote about. So, like, I guess a lot of people like to, like, you know, as if you are more familiar with Christianity, literature, and liturgies, which is kind of what I'm trying to portray here with this background, you will hear a lot of people talk about 1 Corinthians 13 at weddings. So it's like, so 1 Corinthians 12 is sort of like the chapter before 1 Corinthians 13. And just like, you know, so in a sense, because 1 Corinthians 12 is talking about different spiritual gifts in the body, and then 1 Corinthians 13 is talking about love. I guess that's why people think about it as sort of like similar to like Ephesians, right? Except a little bit in reverse order. Ephesians sort of talks about marriage in, like, they give you the illustration before the action. So the illustration is from marriage and family life, and then the action is in the full armor of God in Ephesians 6. But whereas the reverse order is they give you the illustration of one body, many parts, you know, all working together in 1 Corinthians 12. Then they give you the action of, you know, you gotta do it in love in 1 Corinthians 14. So, you know, potato, but it's still following. Like, it is true that you can see the consistency of the format that Paul was using. So yeah, so this is also probably the last time I'll get a good the background will display very well in my video. And it's so, and the other reason for that is well, it's because when I get the new computer, I'm going to rearrange some of the camera in a different position. So instead of the white screen that's my wall, I'm going to mostly have like less consistent in color, and then it's maybe harder to get it back up. I can try it and see what happens. You know, but I want to do this sort of Anakin style, like it was not Anakin style, like, you know, the Anglican denomination and Anglican churches. And I'm gonna just I'll come back after I get dressed in that, kind of illustrate, like, because this is sort of like this is gonna be like illustrating a metaphor for the counseling gift. And then when I get into my white shirt, this is the illustration for the pastoral gift. So give me a second. Alright, I'm back. It's a little hard to see in this lighting, see, but I'm actually I put on a collar. Well, at least they're not going to get me the copyright this time. There's a bit of a logo here. I put on a collar, you know, kind of like traditional preaching style attire. Put on a collar, and well, I mean, and also I had my full face kind of show up a lot better in the lighting that I was originally going to record this video. But like I said, maybe I was having some technical issues. I don't remember the reason why, but I did not record the video then when I had better lighting for this background. So I have to settle for really how the lower image quality. Anyways, so yeah, so 1 Corinthians 12. The main theme is kind of just showing us how we all have different gifts, whether it be prophesying, speaking in tongues, healing, preaching, teaching, whatever. And I thought to myself, what would be like a good verse to kind of get the idea, like maybe that you should keep in mind. And then I also realized, okay, you know what? I'm not really doing because the thing is, even though the article said that to the majority of Jesus, like an article I was reading that Mary published, is that, well, she was not the author, but I mean she put on our course website resources about the language Jesus spoke. And yes, Jesus did know some Greek, but most of the New Testament is basically a translation of sometimes that Jesus would be speaking Jewish to people. Now, then again, we probably look at, okay, what language was Paul writing in? Maybe he was writing mostly in Greek. So anyways, it's hard for certain resources such as this one, that you will see that they would translate the New Testament into Greek. I mean, you won't see it being translated into Hebrew, just like you wouldn't see when you look up stuff on this website for the Old Testament that it will come up in Greek, even though they will give you both the Greek and the Hebrew. However, for the New Testament, they only give you the Greek. So anyways, I could look at it later, and or you can look at it yourself once I teach you how to find out what the word "I" is. So anyway, the word "I" is a little bit tricky because if it's used at the end, depending on, well, actually this is a good test, but I'll try not to bother you guys with that right now, because I know Greek grammar, the way they attribute things, they might still write it in the same format, so it looks similar. But what I'm saying is sometimes the letters look different. It's hard for you to tell whether that's the word "I" if you go and look up the Hebrew yourself. So maybe I'll do it for you anyways. But anyways, I'm just not sure whether or not they use that. But then I realized that this is a good verse, and then I realized, wait a minute, I did look up something else this week that's actually is related to this, right? That is in Hebrew because it's from the Old Testament. So I'm I did find a good verse about this, and that's what me and Kevin were discussing. Me and Kevin, and Kevin has more experience with Hebrew than I do, and so he helped me identify the not just the I part, but the word that I was looking for. So I had to look it up in the dictionary. So thanks, Kevin. Let me shout out quickly. We're at the 8-minute mark apparently of the video. So basically, this passage, is saying we all got different gifts, and we all have different functions, right? So in the body of Christ. If one person's an eye, and we're all eyes, then how can we hear anything? And the concept is if we're all listening, how can we smell? So so I think Paul is just trying to say we would be a dysfunctional body if we all had exactly the same gifts and we were all very good at doing one particular thing. So my message today is also going to focus on what's the difference between in my case, try to explore for myself as well, that I've been reflecting on. It's the gift of counseling versus the gift of pastoring. Because I don't think they're exactly the same, even though there's overlap. So the way I would summarize it is in terms of, say, it's exactly what it says here, right? Hearing. Okay, maybe I gotta close up the notes, right? And then there's also another analogy that he would use. I think he says, I don't know if he talks about the mouth. Maybe I would assume that they might be talking about the mouth. Anyway, it talks about hearing, smelling. Interestingly enough, out of all the parts in the face, I don't really notice that they're. I think he doesn't talk about the mouth. But anyways, he does talk about prophesying and stuff like that, which requires a mouth. So I guess these gifts, right? Where to all speak with tongues, obviously that requires a mouth, and stuff like that. But so what I'm saying is, I feel that, to summarize, the gift of pastoring kind of involves that, like, your strengths kind of lie in 70% speaking and 30% listening, whereas it's the like direct similar opposite of being a counselor. It's like your gifts are like your areas of strength 30% are in speaking, because you do have to speak, but 70% of your gifts are kind of like in counseling. So it might not be like exactly like maybe you do a spiritual gift test, which if I can find one, I'll post it to the resource later. If I find one that I like, that I would recommend, then I'll put one there. Otherwise, you can search for that yourself as well. Spiritual gift test. I recently did one. I recently did one at church, but that one is probably not publicly available, and I don't think that they would look very kindly if I post it publicly without their permission. So perhaps I can do that as well, get permission to post it, or ask them to post it on their website, and then I'll just link you to it. So that might work. But anyways, what I would say here is that, the eye and feet and whatever, so it might not be exactly 70-30 for you per se, maybe you're 65-35, but the whole point is, if you're like, I know somebody recently, my classmate, Rachel, she's decided, like, she was a pastor, now she's deciding she wants to major more in the counseling side of things, and I know that she's also released like YouTube videos, like called Mental Health Mondays and stuff like that. So, and that's I don't think there's anything wrong with that, because let me just switch back. I just realized that you guys are not seeing me, but you're still just seeing the scripture and you're not seeing me. So I'll put myself back on the screen. There you go. So. So 70% talking and 30% speaking. So what I would say is that, so what I'm saying for more precisely that example is that, like, you still have some gifts in listening to people, but like compared to somebody who's like, more gifted in counseling, that person, like Paul said, there's got to be a balance, right? So some people are more better at one thing, some people are better at the other. So you may have more gifts in listening, or you may have more gifts in speaking. So what I'm saying is that I'm not saying that you got no gifts in listening, but your gifts are just better for speaking, which is kind of like the other people. Like, that's why you have a lot of people to listen to you. So for me, I don't got a lot of viewers. But I did have like one person kind of like, when I was listening to some other person speaking at the time online, and the person was like, yeah, you better come with the translation, Kevin, like Lolita, I think her name is. And then I'm like, oh, okay, maybe she's been watching some of my YouTube videos. So I might have a small audience, but the whole point is, like, when me and my friend Alex explored this in the past, we were talking about, like, he was saying that to me, like, as my friend and as a brother in Christ, he's saying, I'm not saying you don't have gifts for, like, working in the church or whatever, and, or even working in like other Christian organizations that are sort of like similar layouts, but he's just saying, like, I don't feel that that's necessarily your area of greatest gifting. So I guess, like, that sort of incepted the concept in my brain for a little while. And even when I first started going to seminary, I didn't really have an exactly 100% clear goal of what I wanted to do after graduation. So what I realized is that, yes, apparently, like, throughout my life, not only that people are like constantly wanting me to listen to them, regardless of what the context is I realized that, I seem to have more talents and gifting to listen to people and to understand them than people to understand me, like the flip side. I'm not saying that nobody understands me, but I'm just saying, like, that, area of greatest gifting. Like I said, like the weight is on listening as opposed to speaking. So therefore, I kind of do it. Okay, I realize that this is sort of like, automatically, kind of like naturally, is what is required more of people who are called to counseling than they would be called to pastor. So here I am majoring in counseling, but just trying out the preaching thing for a little bit sometimes, just for the sake of those who are lost. Like it says in Matthew 18, I was reading. Well, like my friend Doug was saying, and I think I mentioned earlier, context is everything. So even I am taking this slightly out of context because it talks about the sheep wandering away. But I'm going somewhere with this, so I'm going to bring it into context for you in a second. The sheep wandering away, and then he tries to. So yes, I am kind of taking it out of context, trying to say, I'm doing this message because there could be still somebody listening, even though like a lot of people aren't listening to my message. But for that one person who's listening, I gotta do this message kind of thing, right? So it's a bit out of context because, like, as you can see here, the other passages is talking about repentance and trying to help people to bring them out of their sin, or you don't want to cause people into sin. So the context of this is that the sheep is lost because they're being sinful, and you want to lead them back in the right way, not necessarily just in the context that I'm using it, where like, okay, one person, I don't want to just like automatically get involved in like in the area where I can have a bigger audience. Rather, maybe I should just like attend online services more and just chat with people, and people are going to see that, and they're not going to see this video kind of thing. So that's why I'm going for the, that's why I'm saying this verse, I'm going to go after the small number of sheep who are listening here on my YouTube channel and don't necessarily join me for online service, right? So there, but that is taking this slightly out of context. However, going back to the larger context. Sorry, I clicked the wrong thing here. But yes, this is where I'm going to in a second. Again, it's hard for me to edit. The built-in video editor is not very good, so I don't know. I mean, I could try to invest in like a better video editor, but I don't really want to spend money that I might need later on for more directly related educational purposes. So that's kind of where I stand with that. So it would be nice if I had access to better video editing to kind of even get rid of this, that green stuff here, and that's kind of showing through. So I could fix that if I had more sophisticated video editing. Not necessarily have to go with the most expensive stuff like Adobe Premiere or anything like that, but not to knock on Adobe Premiere. I've used it in the past. It's great software. It's just it's expensive. It costs hundreds of dollars. Whereas this software that I'm using just to record, and it has an editor, but I can't seem to be able to edit stuff in and out of it. I tried to use it and I couldn't seem to figure out how to edit anything. So I don't think the video editor really is much of an editor. It's just like it's a misnomer. But anyways, going back to where I was going at. So let's see here. First Corinthians 12, letter Bible. So yeah, here we are. We're back at if the I and the whatever, right? So I thought about that, and I thought about like, okay, this is not the first time the imagery of the eye is used. So could Paul, because he has a lot of knowledge of Old Testament scripture as well, not only Jesus, maybe not as much knowledge as Jesus, but he's also has a lot of background in Judaism. So maybe he's also trying to draw from this, right? Just like how people, there's I had written a blog entry at some point about like Jacob's love for Rachel and Leah. It's like Rachel sort of represents God, and like Leah sort of represents everything else. So we should love God more than we love other things, because it says in another passage, you hate your mother and father or whatever. If you don't hate your mother and father, then you're not worthy of me. Well, it's a little extreme, but then I read a commentary or article that they're saying that they're comparing that to the language of this passage actually about like Jacob loved Rachel, but he didn't really like Leah that much. So that's more like a more comprehensible translation. But what some translation would say is like, you know, Jacob loved Rachel and he hated Leah. But you know, it's a little extreme to say he completely hated Leah, but you know, but it's just like in comparison, that's what they're saying in the commentary. In comparison, he loved Rachel a lot more, and they like because of so much she loved Rachel that it seemed like Leah was like not loved or hated, so to speak. And so here we're talking about like eyes, right? So you know, like I said about 1 Corinthians. So Kevin helped me with the Greek here, and so this says and eyes, and this is like a possessive. So eyes of. So this is like a of. This last letter here of, and this is the this is pronounced sort of like Leah. So pretty close to the English. That's Leah. And then is yeah. So Kevin was saying that this is actually supposed to, it's like plural and feminine, just like how this is a feminine and plural here of her eyes. That's why I kind of got it wrong. But so this is the word you're looking for, and the English here of tender is not bad. Weak is a little bit like controversial because of the way that we use weak nowadays in like modern, in like our modern English compared to whenever they translated it as weak back then, I guess. So another way that I would say this is when I look this up in the lexicon, I would say that this word is actually like, you know, I think it was saying it's in what's that abbreviation? I can't remember off the top of my head, but they had another passage where they referenced this word in the context. So yeah, so tender, but also it was saying it's kind of like timid, or like, so I think that timid would also kind of work here. You know, it's like Rachel had very like aggressive and powerful eyes, and like, you know, but so I guess that's kind of why they, you know, I can understand, because when they try to look at the whole Bible, that's probably what they're trying to use a contrast, right? Where it's like, you know, compared to Rachel's eyes and the rest of her, like, her eyes were like weak. It's like, so like, you know, or like, you know, or you can say like Rachel's eyes were on fire, and like, you know, Leah's flames and her eyes, a little bit dim, whatever. But anyway, so the reason why I'm drawing from this passage is because you know, it says Leah's eyes were tender, right? So okay, so she wasn't so strong in the eyes department, or even like maybe overall appearance. But look here, you know, so or actually, sorry, the joke about this was like, you know, like, and it does kind of work with the context, right? So she's not very strong up here, but you know, but down there, you know, down there, you know, you see here, like, you know, Rachel saw that she bore Jacob no children, so you know, she was the thing that actually kind of helped in the, you know, trying to like, kind of helped is that, you know, God saw that Leah was not loved as much, and, you know, allowed her to give birth. But you know, Rachel was barren, and God didn't fix that till later. Regardless of whether she was barren to begin with, or like, you know, I don't think God necessarily made her barren. It's just that maybe God kind of restored her ability to have kids, or given her ability to have kids, just like He did with Sarah, you know, earlier on in Genesis. So I think what I'm saying here is that, you know, yeah, so I'm gonna use it. I'm using that as like kind of a parallel to the Corinthians, where it's like, okay, you know, Leah wasn't, you know, very attractive, but she was, you know, she was like up there with her face and the eyes, and whatever, but down there, you know, she's able to give birth, and Rachel can't, you know, so, you know, so she was stronger down there, and Rachel stronger up there, you know, kind of thing. But anyway, so, you know, but you know, but it makes sense, because I think in some translations, right, they say like, here it goes, for example, like, you know, the members of the body we think to be less honorable, or from uncomely here. In some English translations, this is apparently the King James version somewhere. I don't know if it's the New King James. It's probably the New King James. They just didn't really be explicit with that, because it doesn't sound like there's a lot of old English with the thou and there and all that. You know, Shakespeare. Even though I mean, you got a half here right here, but. But still, you know, I don't really think this is the original King James. Anyway, some other English translations will say, like, you know, less presentable parts. So, you know, like down there that you don't want to, you don't necessarily, you know, want to be showing everybody kind of thing, you know. So, you know, So, you know, I think that there is a definite possibility. Again, I'm not Paul, so I can't. But because, you know, Paul would know that the Jewish people are familiar with, you know, like Torah and like other parts of the, you know, the Old Testament, that maybe that's what he was trying to draw from. And I'm going to leave myself the last 5 minutes to kind of just close off the points. Okay, so I've been debating and nobody has given me any feedback as to when they would like my messages to be released. So I'm just going to release them at what is it called, Universal Time of, I think that would be 6:30 a.m. And yeah, I guess so, because yeah, Eastern Time is behind Universal Time by 5 hours, supposedly. But I guess it depends on whether or not you have the daylight savings kicking in. So, but anyways, I think I think London time does not have daylight savings at all. That's why it's a little bit off. So what I'm saying is, so for Pacific Standard Time, my messages will be coming out 8:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time is going to be 11:30 a.m. Yes, and the Central Standard Time is 10:30 a.m. And by the time you read this message, I am going to make a commitment to watch my own messages. So I don't necessarily also want to spend like more than half an hour listening to my own messages, and in case anybody wants to chat with me, the chat during the release time. So for the next 3 weeks, including this one, I promise that I'll be releasing my message at that time, the time I just specified. And if you'd like to join me in watching them and, you know, chatting with other people, or in the YouTube chat, or chatting with me, then by all means. Oh, so sorry. I want to go back to the. So yeah, there was a language word. I think I really want to just go back to me as I conclude this. Alright.
That's a little wasp. How the heck did that happen?
Now I'm just
How did that happen?
So now this particular lighting in this section is this cross necklace in my short zone. So if I were, you know, yeah, so like if the whole body is just the head, then how can I do this? Or how can I even hold the mic? You may have different gifts in Jesus, but you know, you gotta use what God has given you.
I got a call from my manager saying Marvel are interested in meeting you to see if there might be some chemistry for this new franchise they want to start called Ant-Man.
And I'm sure I might want to do another series on. So for next
That's
week,
what they
I'm
called
just going to be talking about
right hand?
And I laughed out loud, and I said, have they run out of superheroes and they're now making them up? Because I had never heard of Ant-Man, and it sounded ridiculous.
Was just a tall
And the truth is, my honest reaction was, I don't actually really want to do a superhero movie. But thank you. Super nice of him. And he goes, no, hear me out, wait. Paul Rudd is going to star in it. And I was like, okay, hold the phone. What did you just say? It's a superhero movie. Paul Rudd's going to be the superhero? Yes, Paul Rudd's going to be the superhero. I'm almost in. Just give me a minute. And so I took the weekend and I watched some Marvel movies. Which is something I'd never done before. So I didn't realize that they were reinventing the superhero film trope, and that they were actually doing the most amazing superhero movies I'd ever seen. I then was as keen as anybody would be, and everybody should be, to actually become an Avenger.
Was there a particular moment in the movies you were watching where